Live. Yeah. Well, welcome to the Unresolved Viewings, Foretellings, and Dreams. That's right. Yeah, let's talk about it, right? Before we do that, I think it would be wonderful for our guests to introduce themselves. And so I'm going to look over to my right because I would like her to introduce herself first. Maria, can you introduce yourself to the audience here?
Hi, I'm Maria Simmons. I have the absolute joy of working for Robert Jordan, who I call Jim most of the time. So if I say that, that's why. And his lovely wife, Harriet, for over 26 years. And especially since I get to come to wonderful cons like this and meet all these fabulous people.
Maria Simmons, everybody. This is what Maria is one of the people I said that we liked just basically making our own read and find out. So Maria's here. So Maria and find out today.
Yes, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. That doesn't mean Maria doesn't get to say other things. Then our second person here, Seth, you might introduce yourself?
I'm Seth from Watt Spoilers. It's a podcast we've been doing for about 5 years. The feedback is typical. Technical problems are a thing. But yeah, it's something that I've loved to do, and I've done deep dives into a lot of the content here in the Wheel of Time. And this is just more great deep dive content to get into. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Seth from Watt Spoilers, everybody. Yeah. Seth has done a ton of research for this. So he's done a lot of work on this. Really appreciate it, Seth. Next to me.
Hello, I am not a content creator. I am what I say is like a community supporter. So I mod on Discord as Zool and on YouTube as Dana Lou Who. So if you just remember, there is no Dana, only Zool. Do you have it? There you go. So
yes. By the way, yeah. Community supporter, or whatever you said, does not nearly explain Zool here. But thank you very much for all that you do for the Wheel of Time community on Discord and at the Dusty Wheel and other mods. I don't know, how many YouTube channels do you have mod? Don't be embarrassed. It's okay to tell us.
I actually don't know the number.
Okay.
I actually don't know the number of Discords where I'm a moderator. So I have been asked for some that had I been asked earlier, I would have said yes. It just started getting to be too much because for a while there, I was like, okay, well, I'll just sort of be a shadow mod maybe. When I'm there, I'll help. But eventually, it just becomes too much. So I had to pick and choose. And my first mod job, one of my first ones, was the Dusty Wheel. And,
yeah. Thank you very much for being that person. And my name is Matt Hatch. I created a Theoryland back in the day. And then a YouTube channel, The Dusty Wheel. So it's awesome to be here. Thank you very much for having us. We're talking about viewings, foretellings, dreamings, and then obviously some unresolved ones. We want to jump into that, but I do have a couple of things I want to read to you because I think these things are always important to kind of put some context into what we're talking about. And these are answers from Robert Jordan. And also Maria has showing in these answers. But I thought these were useful. Just as a reminder, Robert Jordan said there's no relationship whatsoever between foretelling, which manifests only in someone who can channel, and men's viewings. There have been versions of men's viewings in some previous ages, though not exactly the same. Min and the Sniffers and Wolf Brothers appearing are all highly indicative, you know. New abilities for this age are appearing, and that in itself indicates great changes coming. Great changes underway. Men's abilities will not remain unique. We have already seen one Wolf Brother besides Perrin and Elias, though a pitiful soul who couldn't master his gift, and there will be other Sniffers. The age is changing. The wheel never stands still. So I thought that would be really helpful for us to just remember. And then someone asked, do men's viewings always predict the future, or do some tell about the past? Mainly the seven towers are on land in the eye of the world. Robert Jordan said, her viewings are always concerning the future. So keep that in mind too. And question, I thought that maybe men's viewings had some relationship to them. You'll hear who's talking about in a second. RJ describes the fins as looking not at Matt, but at the air around Matt's head. I thought this was similar to the way Min sees her viewings. Are they related? No, is what Robert Jordan said. Then this one is Maria's. Is there any relationship between Perrin's dream visions and Min's viewings? Does she see into Teleronriad? Maria said, I don't know. I might be able to find out. So, Maria.
I've never found out.
So, there you go. Still there. I like that. Gives us some speculative space.
Yeah.
And this last note, which may have to do with a viewing that we'll be talking about, Trey Cooper summarized this and said, well, and he might be talking about something Maria could mention, but said RJ left specific notes that, full spoilers here, everybody. Okay, right? Okay. RJ left specific notes that Min's Olivia viewing was supposed to be incidental and an example of unreliable narrator, even in the case of Min's viewings. The foretelling dreams about the boat were supposed to be along the same lines. So that was a summary of something that was said. So anyways, there's some fun things for us to keep in mind. One of the things we do is we want to ask you guys shortly here as we get started, what are some of the viewings or foretellings, dreams that you think are still unresolved, or you think you've heard an answer for, you don't agree? Maybe it's a resolved but unresolved kind of thing. So do you want to kind of kick us off, Seth, with some things that you found in your research? Start there.
I think one of the first ones we wanted to talk about is from Eye of the World, Strangers and Friends, one of the early prophecies. And this is one of Min's viewings. A sword that isn't a sword, a golden crown of laurel leaves, a beggar's staff, ran pouring water on sand, and a bloody hand on a white hot iron. 3 women standing over a funeral bier with you on it, black rock wet with blood. Most of all, I see lightning around you, some striking you, some coming out of you. I don't know what any of it means except one thing: you and I will meet again. And I think in particular, the line "a bloody hand and a white hot iron" is the unresolved part of that. That's something that is never totally explicitly in the books, the white hot iron. Now, the bloody hand, I think there's Band of the Red Hand, there's Rand losing his hand, there's Galad losing his hand, and how are those related? And which one of those do we think could be the answer?
And semantically, an interesting thing about that is you have all of these set off by commas, except for it's and no comma, the white hot iron. So it's the bloody hand and white hot iron. We never see together, to my knowledge. Do you have anything to add to this one?
Thank you. Read and find out.
Oh wow. Okay. Actually, that's a good sign. So, do any of you have ideas about? Yes, Guinevere here. We don't have another mic, do we?
Okay, I'm loud.
Okay, be loud here. We'll try to restate what you say, but go ahead, Guinevere.
The bloody hand, of course, is when his hand is taken off by a white hot iron balefire.
Ooh. Balefire and the white hot iron. Interesting.
It's a symbol.
So do you believe that Semirog was using balefire, or was that just a fireball that took off his hand?
It's not the same. I think it was more balefire.
Interesting.
When we see
That
other
would be- I don't think
instances
it
of
could be that, but-
balefire and it touches a person, the whole person goes.
Yeah.
But this is it only gets his hand out. Like when it strikes a column, it only takes out that part.
But that's for inanimate objects. In no other instance that I know of do we see it strike a living being without taking the whole being. So
The worker doesn't know. It's an idea.
Yeah, that's a fun idea.
There is a
I
point
mean-
where I think he's using just the thinnest threads of balefire to take out Murdral, and they all invert all at once. So yeah,
the entire way.
and the Dark Hounds, yeah.
Okay, other ideas here. I think far back and we'll come forward. Yep, go ahead in the white mask.
The bloody hand, I tended to say Matt, and I think the white hot iron could be a place. I think that could be evaluation.
Oh, so the idea was bloody hand would be Matt, related to Matt, and then the white hot iron being a place, relating to a place. Interesting. Yeah.
The problem with this is specifically a viewing for Rand. And in Seth's research, he found on the 13th depository a note about this part that says originally Jordan planned to have Morgase sentence Rand to death, with Elaine managing to commute this, but also having to condemn him to some other punishment. In Robert Jordan notes on book 2 through 6, extremely tentative notes on some versions of these notes, with his hand chopped off. Forced to wander the countryside alone. This viewing is a remnant of this plot. So,
That's an interesting
It's
take.
possibly a canceled plot. One of the other ideas that I came across in my research is that it's possible the white hot iron was Ishmael's staff in his side, and the bloody hand is whenever he reaches over to touch his side, his hand
Oh, I
becomes
like that.
bloody.
I like that one.
And so the white hot iron was literally him getting stabbed. Now, that was actually black, but it was a hot staff. So I liked that theory when I was doing my research that I came across.
I did
Yeah.
see another hand.
Yeah, no, right here, Jay Diggity, and then we'll come up in front.
Well, I was just gonna ask, do we know what Matt dragons were made of, but what she just mentioned kind of.
Oh, gotcha. On Scout, yeah, go ahead.
This one may be a bit of a stretch, but just because they're together, having brands hands branded, like a lot of times brands don't bleed because they're cauterized, but they can bleed.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was ever mentioned that he bled when he burned his hands.
Yeah, that's interesting. I do like the white hot iron relating to a brand itself being a little bit more. Yeah, I
That's
like
an
that.
interesting-
Possibly when
Yeah.
he stabbed Ishmael at the end of book 2, that did the brand
Yeah.
was very hot, or just in the dream world, right? In the parallel, I guess it was
Yeah.
not dream world.
Yeah, in his dream.
In his dream.
Yeah.
Where I think Ishmael just makes the sword hot, right? And he gets branded. That's how he gets his first brand.
So white hot iron.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be dream related to that. Yeah. So any other ideas on this one? You want to move on from it? And do we want to vote on what we think? Do we believe the white hot iron? Do you want to take some options here related to kind of the dream itself? What else do we have here? There's a
Wizard
previous
side.
plot.
Previous plot.
Okay.
And
Is there a third option for white hot iron? Would be more symbolic to an attack of some sort? Okay. So who believes that the white hot iron is related to kind of dream and Rand being branded? Ooh. Okay. Who believes that this was just kind of a plot that Jordan had put in that just never kind of was an idea that just never kind of fully became something?
that's pretty
Okay.
popular.
They're all leaning in. I got you. Yeah. They're reading to
Yeah.
find out. Yeah. Who? Maria. Well, I guess you can't. You gave us read and find out, so I won't push
Yeah,
that
I'm
one.
just-
Okay.
Just saying, there's a book coming out in November. People might want
And if you have not pre-ordered The Origins of the Wheel of Time by, is it Michael Livingston?
Michael Livingston.
Please do.
Yeah. So, by the way, Reese in chat said he also does talk about having to become hard as iron, as Rand. So, you could think about this as the white hot iron, just like Rand. What Rand becomes, that force, if you will. Sorry, I'm seeing. Yeah, go ahead, and then we'll come over here. Except- Sure. Yeah.
Since he is ideal, it would be a place where they would be reforged or
Yeah.
would be reforged.
Okay. So, the ideal waste. I do like that idea. Was that Brighton back there? I can't remember. Okay, Brighton. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Just an idea, it is Rand's viewing, but could it be Matt as the one hand and Perry as the white hot
I can't remember viewing wise. I mean, obviously men's viewings do relate to things that people do. Yeah, no, they do because they relate to like people being married or something. They. So I'm okay with that kind of interpretation that they're, especially because of the connection that we know they have in the books. That somehow tangentially you can see a viewing of that. Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
To kind of follow up on what Reese had said in the chat, with him, when he lost his hand, I can't remember exactly, obviously there's 4 million words. But when he loses his hand, I feel like I remember specifically, I believe Naive saying, Rand, you just suffered this devastating injury, like, are you okay? And he's just like, he just doesn't care. the
Yeah.
theory about it. So that him being forged in iron in that
Oh,
time, with
interesting.
his bloody
Yeah.
hand, could be a good theory.
Yeah, no, I like it. That's who wants to retake their vote about the IO waste and being hardened for the IO waste? Would you vote for that as the interpretation? Anybody? Okay. Yeah, there's not as much. So, okay, do you want to jump to the next one?
Sure. Well, I just want to
Or
bring
you
up
want- yeah, go
two
ahead.
related prophecies. That, if you think about it from the missing plot that was cut, there are two men's viewings around Elaine. Right. One of the things she saw looking at Elaine was a severed hand, not mine. Now, that could be the plot with Rand's hand being severed. I've also seen that being the Band of the Red Hand, which Elaine uses to get the dragoons and the dragons. Also above Elaine's head, a red hot iron and an axe. Again, it really does seem like that's directly out of Jordan's missing plotline. But those are both from the Great Hunt. So I wanted to bring those up and say there is sort of several of men's viewings around this that appears to be changed later on.
Does anybody have a theory about the Elaine viewings that mention the hand and an axe and white hot iron? Or no, and what is the last one with the axe and the?
A red hot iron and an axe. They meant trouble, she was sure, but it seemed distant somewhere in the future.
Okay. Do any of you have any theories about those?
That goes back to me then to that like lost plot line. And
Yeah.
going back to Rand, and then that to me says the loss of the hand, the iron to Brand to cauterize it,
Mhm.
which now we know might be performed by Lane as punishment. So
Yeah.
that seems
All right.
pretty clear. I'm obviously right. Oh,
Is that Jen
I
or
love
is that
your
Megan back there?
confidence.
Is that Jen? So I'll read an answer here. This is from December 6, 2012. This is Brandon's answer from someone at one of the signings. He said, have Elaine's axe and red hot iron been fulfilled? Brandon said, axe and red hot iron been fulfilled? You can ask Maria, but I believe they have. So, Maria,
Maria?
have Elaine's axe and red hot iron been fulfilled? Brandon said we could ask you.
10 years ago.
Yeah, right?
There's some things I still just can't talk about.
Okay. Oh, I like it.
That's intriguing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to pick something else here, Seth? And then I think maybe we go to the audience after
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. One thing that I think is interesting is a Gawain vision, because there is a forked road. And the question is, which one? Oh, yeah, he's awful. But which choice did he end up taking? And I think there is some debate to be had here. Gawain kneeling at Egwene's feet with his head bowed, and Gawain breaking Egwene's neck. First one, then the other, as if either could be the future. The things she saw were rarely as clear in meaning as those two, and she'd never before seen that fluttering back and forth, as though not even the viewing could tell which would be the true future. Worse, she had a feeling near to certainty that it was what she had done this day that had turned Gawain towards those two possibilities, and that's in the Shadow Rising during the Tower Rebellion. And I think the interesting thing there is the first one appears to be her bonding him as a warder, and the second one appears to be Gawain causing her death. But both happen. So why is the fluttering, what happened there where both came true? But it seems like she really was trying to pick one path or the other. And there's a couple other visions that indicate that Gawain is turning down one path or another based on Egwene. And I'm just curious, what people think about the fact that both appear to have happened, even though men's viewing really is forked.
As in why it's forked?
Yeah.
So I would push that from a metaphysical standpoint just to the Dark One's touch on the pattern. So if you think about the wheel and its capability to predict the future in the sense of knowing where it's going to weave, and it should know what's going to happen. But I think as the Dark One's touch becomes even greater on the pattern itself, and you start to see the pattern. I mean, look at what's happening, right? Like it's almost like worlds are merging at the end, because people are seeing ghosts, things are just falling apart the world itself is falling apart. So I think at that point, that flutter, and that's how I would interpret it, is what you have is the Dark One touching the world, and you might have kind of the wheel presenting, basically in a viewing, if you will, like two possibilities of what the future could hold. And its awareness, almost like it's like, yeah, its capabilities to predict that future based on the Dark One's touch, and it's like these are two things now that could happen, whereas maybe that's one interpretation of it, at least for me. So
That's basically what I thought. And he did cause her death,
Yes.
no doubt. But the him breaking Egwene's neck, to me, is not just causing her death. It's actually doing it himself, not just being stupid and going off, but actually turning on her.
Okay. So you think there's a future where he would have been maybe Elida's puppet and taken down the opposing Emerald?
Either that or just he got mad at Egwene for speaking to Rand, who killed his mother, and
or he gets turned.
Yeah.
Something like, you know what I mean? Like,
So you're saying Gollum could be worse?
someone on the floor. He
Gawain
could be.
could be worse. See, that's a positive. Yeah, Sharon.
Viewing about him potentially breaking her neck would relate to her death, but in his choice of, do I stay with the tower and that faction of Aes Sedai, or do I follow Egwene and that faction of Aes Sedai? Right, like that could have been in that fluttering of the viewing, which path there he takes, and her downfall. Of one, her having broken her neck, making a different choice. Right?
Yep, I'll read you. I'm gonna read you Jordan's answer about this, but it's not like he's. I don't want to present that like he's giving us the answer, but someone in 1994. That's right, way back then, crazy fans, at a CompuServe chat. And there you go. Yeah, if you don't recognize that, you're not that old. Kevin asked, are Min's visions absolute foretellings or probabilities? Robert Jordan said, her visions are absolute foretellings. The problem is she doesn't always know what it means. The only changes from that are two visions she's had, which indicated the possibility of the future forking an either or, and that's the only time she's ever had anything like that. So.
And how many books had come out at that point?
That was the Shadow Rising. Yep. The other one was, at least the footnote here, which is likely by a friend of mine named Therese, and so I trust it.
Yay.
Therese knows all. Lord of Chaos 46 was a viewing of Rand about Perrin. Twice he's going to have to be there, or you. She peered into her goblet so he could not see her face. If he's not, something bad will happen to you. Her voice sounded small and frightened, very bad. So that's the one that Therese put as the second one. So I don't know who raised their hands, but we haven't heard from us at Darius there. Yeah, Darius, go ahead.
I haven't heard of this vision of Gollum and breaking neck is actually about the blood knives. Because he chooses not to go save her from the blood knives. She doesn't. He chooses to save her, he becomes the warrior. And she's but hey, that's just kind of the way I think that.
Okay, yeah, that's right. We had two more comments. Jay Diggity, go ahead.
So since he did say that Min doesn't always know what the viewing means, so
Yep.
we can't necessarily take it literally. What if it can be like a duality of the balance nature where he loves Egwene, because you have basically two images, one is of submission, one is of opposition. So he loves Egwene, but he doesn't truly accept her as an animal. So I think she doesn't sit down and tell her midnight about it. So maybe that could be a possibility.
Sure. Yeah. Other thoughts up here about that one? Yeah, we had one last comment from Mike, and we'll move on. No?
To go with JD's comment there, I was along the same thing. For me, that the vision of him kneeling wasn't necessarily becoming her warrior as much as it was him submitting to her. And then that submission to her, while she felt it was real, we all thought it was real, maybe it wasn't so real, because then he goes on and goes full gallon go back to demand when he shouldn't, clearly. And so I felt like maybe that was the flutter, was well, he submitted, but he didn't, and because he didn't, him dying leads to her,
Yeah,
obviously, breaking.
I like that. I like that.
I like that too.
Well done, Mike. Maria said she liked your interpretation. Come get a token. Yeah, here we go.
Come up here, get a token.
Get over here, Mike.
Come on.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy. I just want to tell you out there, maybe 4 or 5 tokens asked to the right person could get you a golden crane and Family Feud tomorrow. That's all I'm saying. So if you have a number of tokens, you might be able to swap them in. So, look. This is another lesson learned, Mike. There's always more meanings. So do we want to ask out there? Or is there no one want to talk?
There's a lot of prophecies out there that there could be multiple possible solutions to. There are prophecies that maybe are going to happen after the last battle. There's a lot of options here for prophecies. I was wondering if there's anyone out there. I've got a list of maybe, nearly 300 prophecies here. We don't have time to talk about them all. Is there any prophecy in particular you are interested in finding out more about? That I can look up really quick.
So we don't hear about it a lot, but there is at least one cast who I talked about the Prophecies of the Dark One, and you feel like you never hear about it again. And I would like to know what the other side's prophecies was to this whole thing.
So the question was for those that are DK Moons in chat here, and just said, what are the audience saying? So one of the questions was just about dark prophecies themselves. We don't hear a lot about them, and so any comments from the panel up here about dark prophecies and, maybe the validity of them or the invalidity of them. And Maria, any thoughts on dark prophecies?
I'd kind of forgotten that dark prophecies existed.
Yeah, right.
So,
which tells you how relevant they probably are. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
So the big one is in The Great Hunt, Blood Calls Blood, right? So that's the one scrolled on the wall by Fane, Murdrol, Trolloc. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I think it's Fane. I think in Baron.
There are 2 hands.
There are 2 hands, right? One, I believe, one's a Murdrol and one's Fane. Daughter of the night, she walks again. The ancient war she yet fights. Her new lover she seeks. Who shall serve her and die, yet serve still? Who shall stand against her coming? The shining walls shall kneel. Blood feeds blood. Blood calls blood. Blood is and blood was and blood shall ever be. Luke came to the mountains of doom. Esam waited in the high passes. The hunt is now begun. The shadow's hounds now course and kill. One did live and one did die, but both are. The time of change has come. Again, blood calls blood. The watchers wait on Toman's head. The seed of the hammer burns the ancient tree. Death shall sow and summer burn before the great Lord comes. Death shall reap and bodies fail before the great Lord comes. And the seed slays ancient wrong before the great Lord comes. Now the great Lord comes. Now the great Lord comes. So there's a lot in those prophecies. It is almost a full Koreathon cycle level prophecy written on the wall.
I wish we'd had Recappa to come read that for us.
What did you say?
I wish we'd had Recappa Sedai to come read that for us.
But it starts off basically talking about Lanfear and the Shining Walls. You then get a lot of prophecy about Luke and Esam, which seems very accurate. And the Watchers on Toman Head and the invasion that happens there, the seed of the returning Shan Chan, all that seems very accurate to me. I don't think there's anything that's not right there. But one thing is just the interpretation of it, right? The vilification of our good guys from the evil perspective is the most interesting part of that to me. But I don't see anything inaccurate about those. They seem to be very, very precise and very, very accurate in terms of what's happening in the next book.
Yeah, I would say I just looked up. This is going to happen. All the rest of the thing. 1998. There's a question. Barnes and Noble chat from DS from Wattism. Wattism. Yeah, that was the website. What is the dark prophecy in the Great Hunt? A real prophecy or was it a taunt? Robert Jordan said, We didn't find out because that's Robert Jordan. He's good. But the footnote on that by Therese said, RJ suggested in the Torah questions of the week that it was indeed a prophecy simply by referring to it as a prophecy. So that's something to keep in mind that, like, yeah, because it kind of has that mirror drill because it says like under pressure, the mirror drill was forced to, right?
Right.
Feign. So it's like, was it something that, was it actual prophecy or was it, just kind of taunt? And so seems to suggest still a little bit of an open question, but that Robert Jordan did refer to it as prophecy for anyone that was wondering how much we could constitute as an actual prophecy.
And one of the things that I find coming up again and again, and it's in one of these prophecies, is talking about Rand and which hand shelters and which hand slays. There's also prophecies where he loses one and they're saying, well, which one did he lose? So there's a lot of references to Rand losing a hand, and that hand being the one that either slays or shelters. And, I think up until Veins of Gold, the question is Rand going to be the one to destroy the world or the one to save it? And I think there's a lot of references to that. And then on one hand or maybe the other. So that goes back to the red hot iron and losing a hand. So it's clear that Robert Jordan was going to take off Rand's hand very early on. I think it's what he just didn't know exactly how he was going to do it, but he definitely knew that hand was going away.
Yeah, that's good. Any other ideas about the dark prophecy or random? Go ahead.
Just it kind of triggered out on this time when I was hearing it. Is there any similarity between the Dark Lord comes to the way the family is called then?
She comes,
Yeah, the
she
question-
comes,
yeah.
the Dark Lord comes, the Dark Lord comes. That's a nice balance there. I like it.
The question was for anyone in chat: was there any connection between the Dark Lord comes, and she comes as the Almerlin? Yeah, I like that. Just kind of a literary thing versus necessarily
Yeah.
And I was listening to that thinking, if I was a dark friend, what would I find comforting, or how would I see something positive to my future in this prophecy? And that part where the Dark Lord comes would be to me like, I think he's really going to win and manifest, so because if it's a dark prophecy and it's talking about anything with the other side winning, I'm going to be like, what? So, Noman Garden.
With similarities of forms, what do you think about the idea that all the dark prophecies are from a black sister?
You mean like a foretelling kind of thing? Like he said, with the similarities, he said, what do you think about dark prophecies potentially being from a black sister, Black Aja?
Seems likely. I mean, we know we have Shan Chan prophecies that, just like anyone else, anyone who channels may be born with the ability to foretell. And so the Shan Chan have their own set of foretellings as well. That's the E6. It's not the Koreathon cycle, but they've actually modified it with some of their prophecies. And the most notable one of that is that Rand will kneel to the crystal throne. It does.
It does.
Yeah. It's one of those things where the interpretation is he will kneel and swear fealty, but the actual text is just saying he will kneel, and he fulfills that in almost a courtesy. And again, this is where I think Robert Jordan had a lot of prophecies in there that weren't that significant. The one that I always bring up is he who follows after, right? Narishma.
Okay.
Let's see if I can pull that one up really quick.
Yeah. Do we want to? He who follows after.
Do I want to talk about it? Who likes the conclusion of what seems to be he who follows after as Narishma? For those of you in chat, no one raised their hand. Maria, for that one, I can't remember. Is there an actual? That's what seems like he who follows after was that individual. Is it still open to interpretation?
I don't think so.
Bummer.
I'm not sure.
So into the heart he thrusts his sword, into the heart to hold their hearts. Who draws it out shall follow after. What hand can grasp that fearful blade? And there was a lot of speculation about who that would be, because, and again, Narishma is the one who goes and grabs the sword, takes it out, apparently disables a bunch of traps that Rand didn't put there or thinks he didn't put there. So they were either put there by somebody else or Rand doesn't remember putting them there. There's a discussion to have that. and then he gives it to Rand. But what is following after? Does that mean he becomes the next head of the Black Tower?
Yeah. So do we think that? I mean, guys, that's a good point. Which is what happens could be later on, and so what we saw was just kind of like, sorry everybody, that could just be, I guess, the beginning of it. We're not seeing the fulfillment of it,
Right.
perhaps.
I
And
think
so,
that's pretty much it.
okay. So, what do we think that means? Yeah, Brighton, back there. Go ahead.
Could that refer to King Arthur and the Sword in the Stone? Because if you read the actual King Arthur, once he gets the blade, it actually becomes very dark, and the things happen that shouldn't happen. So I wonder if the myth goes around, and King Arthur is actually the one that pulls out the blade.
So Narishma is King Arthur.
Kind of, yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I don't think necessarily it means a specific person as he who comes after. I think perhaps it means that male channelers will become open and out in the world again and eventually safe.
Okay. Yeah, I was like,
Do you want to repeat that for the audience?
yeah. So basically, basically you're saying that the prophecy is more like male channelers afterwards will become kind of like you said, like a mechanism. They'll come back. Yes, the return of a male channeling population,
Yes.
Basically. When you think of who shall draw that fearful blade, do you think it is like then idea that that's going to be a danger in the fourth age?
Possibly because of its flaw, but possibly because the Black Tower are not under any oath. We hope they're all going to be good, but we obviously see they were not. They were a grave danger before and during the last battle.
Yeah, we think about the absence of the taint as like cool, but they're not necessarily. It's not like because Robert Jordan made this distinction. He said they're not male Aes Sedai. They're male channelers, not Aes Sedai. And so you think, oh, cool, male channelers are back, but just because they don't have the taint doesn't mean that's a great thing. So yeah, that's an interesting. I like that interpretation. I don't know who that is. Oh, is that Darius back there? Yeah, go ahead.
When he's talking about him, was earlier as Morton, this talks about wielding the beautiful blade and use the blade as body swap, and then his following after is still actually great.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we think that the comment for chat was, is that really referring to Moradin? And because what we know happens at the end of the books, is it really is a reference basically to Moradin? Said, who likes that theory over Narishma? The whole audience is raising their hands. Everybody, basically half of them. So yes, I like that interpretation better, just because that means it's not the other one. So yeah, what do you guys think about that one?
I kind of like it.
Yeah, it's hard not to like that one.
I love that.
But I do like Beth's idea here, where if you I like the broad interpretation, regardless if it's the exact meaning, which is that the return of male channelers to the world, is a fearful blade, which I think you see with Dumai as well, right?
Oh yeah.
Which is, I don't believe they had any agreement with the Shan-Chan, did they? The Black Tower wasn't part of the
Dragon's Feast?
Yeah.
No.
So to me, it's one of those, like, they must set up a treaty later, because otherwise you think the Shan-Chan would always be fearful of that blade, if you will.
And one of the 13th Depository speculates that Narishma was the only one who was taught Balefire, and that might be the fearful blade, because he's the one who then teaches it to the rest of the Asha'man. So that might be the following after. That was their speculation.
I'm going to throw this one out to you. This is related to a different dark prophecy. I think it was from Towers of Midnight, but one of those ones that you might not have heard, but the reference to the broken wolf whom death has known.
Yes.
Is that, you want to read that one?
Sure.
And then I'll give you the answer. Well, we could have our panelists. Our panelist once gave this answer. So Maria, but you actually gave the answer, so I'll just read your answer. That way you don't have to worry about it.
Thank you.
You don't have to worry about disagreeing with yourself in that one. The squeaking. Sorry, guys. I can't tell if it's my mic or what.
No, it's the center one.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Give me a second. There's a lot of prophecies, it turns out.
Yeah, Seth did a lot of work on this, everybody. Seth, everybody, please. Yeah. Like literally so much work. What a useful tool that you've created in this doc with all these prophecies. It'd be really interesting to do some fun stuff with it. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's see. And this is actually a shadow prophecy.
Yep.
Lo, it came upon the world that the prison of the greatest one shall grow weak, like the limbs of those who crafted it. Once again, his glorious cloak shall smother the pattern of all things, and the great Lord shall stretch forth his hand to claim what is his. The rebellious nations shall be laid barren, their children caused to weep. There shall be none but him, and those who have turned their eyes to his majesty. In that day, when the one-eyed fool travels the halls of mourning, and the first among vermin lifts his hand to bring freedom to him who will destroy, the last days of the fallen blacksmith's pride shall come. Yea, and the broken wolf, the one whom death has known, shall fall and be consumed by the midnight towers, and his destruction shall bring fear and sorrow to the hearts of men and shake their very will itself. And there's a little more after that, but that's the relevant section.
So apparently this one, well, I'll just read you the answer. I believe this is Therese summarizing this. This is from Waygate Foundation Q&A from April 2013. So just to clear, I guess it isn't Therese's question. Just someone submitted this. Just to clear it up, because I really dislike arguing with people, just to have it out there in big, bold letters, Brandon did confirm in his January 2013 Twitter chat that Hopper was the broken wolf whom death has known. Yes, the broken wolf was Perrin's spirit guide, because this one aggravates me almost as much as Oliver Guidel Kane and Tamundred, especially when people insist it's Rodel Iturralde. And Maria Simmons, who was here, said, yes, Hopper was the broken wolf whom death has known. So if you ever wondered, that's a confirmation.
I thought it was Noel.
Ooh,
Ooh.
Noel is a broken man. He's a wolf. And in particular, consumed by the midnight towers. Is that not another name for the towers of Genji?
No. Thank you for coming, Seth. Thank you for coming. Let's see you in a different panel. It's good.
So Maria looked at me and just shook her head. That's absolutely not. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
That's
Show of
awesome.
hands, who thinks I'm right?
That.
It's a very good.
Thank you.
Okay, hold on a second. Hold on. When it dies down, we're gonna cheer extremely loudly. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. No, we're not. Okay, fine. I know it's my moderator. It's important to have a moderator. That's what I'm saying. Okay, we'll move on. This is why I have every once in a while I have a nature that needs to be curated sometimes like that. So thank you. You brought me back. Is there another viewing out there that you'd like us to kind of talk about? One you think wondering about maybe from an interpretation standpoint? Yeah, go ahead, Darius. Ooh.
A lot of those were very vague. She's been foretelling 2 or 3 times a day. Rather to hear Ariana tell it, Nicole was smart enough to know everyone is aware she can't remember what she says when she foretells. But Ariana, whatever her name is, always seems to be there to hear and remember and help her interpret. Some are the sort of things anyone in the camp with half a brain and a credulous nature might think of. Battles with the Shan or the Ashaman, an Amerlin imprisoned, the Dragon Reborn doing 9 impossible things, visions that might be Tarmangaiden or Bilia's stomach, and the rest just all happen to indicate that Nicola ought to be allowed to go faster with her lessons. I think maybe the 9 impossible things is something to speculate about. One of them being the cleansing the taint. but battles with Sean Chan of the Ashman, Amerlin in prison, that's Egwene. There wasn't a lot of detail there to really dig into. It really was just very vague as what her foretellings were.
Isn't the implication that she's making half of the Knockdown?
Yes.
Yeah. But nothing in here is necessarily wrong, right? So maybe she's making them up, but maybe she's just foretelling a lot of things that are totally accurate, and everyone's like, "Oh, that apprentice over there doesn't know what she's doing," or accepted.
Her foretellings were almost gibberish.
Yeah.
The ones that actually.
Yeah. There's nothing.
Doesn't she have one about the crew and boat too?
Yeah.
Like, that's like one of her first ones.
I may not.
It is first.
Yeah.
The lion sword, the dedicated spear, she who sees beyond. Right, so that's Min, Elaine, and Avienda. 3 on the boat, and he who is dead yet lives. The great battle done, but the world not done with battle. The land divided by the return, and the guardians balance the servants. The future teeters on the edge of the blade. The guardians, I assume, are the Sean Chan? The Ashman. Oh, okay. And the servants are the Asadai.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then, of course, the division being like the two parts of Westlands that have to come together.
Right, the north and the
north
west,
and the east and the south and
and
the
the
west.
south and west, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, this wasn't really in the unsolved category because I think all of that's very
There are
accurate.
so many solved ones that
Yeah.
are pretty clear. So
The only unfortunate of that, though, is the world not done with battle after the last battle.
And there,
The dragon's piece, there's other battle that be with the dragon piece.
there certainly will be. There certainly will be.
The
And
com-
there's a
comment-
whole series of unsolved future viewings, especially in the Sanderson books. He writes a lot of things that will happen to people, like people getting married or battles that they're just not necessarily unsolved, but they are going to happen after the last battle, so we don't get to see them.
In regards to that and the world not done with battle, do we think that's related to Avienda's viewing? And then do we think that that changes? And one of the things that I consider unsolved is we hear a vague reference to what Fire saw, but we don't get to hear that very specifically.
In terms of
And going through the pillars again.
okay, yeah, I assume that's changeable, right? That is a
Talk about
warning
it.
that is
Yeah,
changeable.
it's,
The one thing we do see that's not necessarily changeable is the Min's viewing of Avienda having 4 children. And we do see those 4 children in the viewing who have something weird, which is that they're channeling from birth. That seems to be accurate because that is Min's viewing, which is not a changeable part of it.
Yeah, the channeling for birth again. I think this came up in one of the previous other panels yesterday. What was that Jordan wanted it to be that this age would be different and strange. So I think kicking it off with channeling from birth. That man,
can you imagine?
no.
can they change their own diaper by channeling?
Okay. That would be Balefire.
Yeah, it's exactly. You're just imagining like you're like, can you imagine it's like baby Balefire? No. That would be horrendous. I can't even imagine this idea.
Your sister on fire.
Yeah, your brother's just like you can't float yourself, but they're floating each other.
You're picking them up on this. Yeah.
So I'm imagining something a little more like The Boys. I don't know if you've seen that one. There's a service that is taking care of young children with powers, and it doesn't go well for the people who are taking care of them.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of that.
But by the way, Jordan did confirm the idea of the pattern loosening and things not being as certain. They did ask him how valid are the viewings and prophecies given that the pattern has been loosened. This is around Knife of Dreams. There was also a comment by the person about how the viewings and prophecies are readings of the pattern. Jordan responded, not word for word, the viewings and prophecies that occurred before the loosening of the pattern are very valid, but those that occurred at or after the loosening have a higher chance of not coming true. So, yeah, keep that in mind. Again, when you're speculating, interpreting these things, how certain they are to happen has a lot to do with, again, the Dark One's touch and how loosened the pattern has become.
Do we know when that loosening happens?
Or
Or is that just a progression over time?
I think it's progressive.
Yeah.
I think it's a progression of it. You could try to track it to Demon Dread, and you could like where the Dark One is saying like go cause chaos. You could try to start tracking around that area, right? but there's still, if you go back to the first book, you still see, like, if right when you go back and read that, you're like, oh wait, I'm seeing all the effects of the Dark One touching the pattern from the very beginning.
The Forsaken are being released
Yeah.
bit by bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's 100% chance before one of them gets out.
Yeah.
And then 2 of them are out. So it's down to 90. And,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
it's a progression, not just like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as you were saying, balefire gets used, and you have the bale scream when all the dead start rising, and so that's very loose at that point.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely by the very end. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was thinking maybe it would refer to the bale scream that Rand left off at the tower where he kills the Forsaken with the Shogun.
The palace.
The palace. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely. I mean, stuff's happening. Well, yeah. By then, there's certainly loosening of the pattern. Yeah. Tracy, go ahead.
So the loosening was only applicable to before times, not in.
He said the viewings and prophecies that occurred before at the loosening are the pattern very loud, but those that occurred at or after the loosening have a higher chance of not coming true.
It is absolute.
I hate saying absolute to anything.
It's, you gotta remember, when Jim Jordan was doing signings and people would come up with questions he had no preparation for, sometimes he might not entirely think it through. So sometimes, because there's one that caused me a lot of grief.
do tell. There's one that caused you a lot of grief. Is that one you can share?
Yeah, I don't, I haven't looked things up
Yeah.
like y'all have because I'm not that good. But somebody asked him way back, gosh, what was it? It was about, constructs being able to go through gateways.
Sure.
And
Yep.
he was like, I can't remember the details.
It's like the shadow spawn can go through a gateway kind of thing, and he had said no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when the golem, and there was, no, that can't happen. But, I had notes about how golems could be killed, and that wasn't one of them.
Gotcha.
That one.
Yeah.
So could that possibly be a difference in that you have the shadow spawn that are these biological creations that are, and maybe the golem is made in a different way.
So it's made specifically to kill us, so it was going to have more powers.
It's like robot voice over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially fortified.
Yeah. Because it does die, right? That's what we're told.
Well,
anyways, but.
It falls for a while.
No, but it said, I think Brandon says it dies in the midst of falling. I'll look it up, everybody.
Does it really?
I mean, it will die when it's starved of blood. It does says it needs blood to live. So one would assume that eventually, over time, it does starve.
It would I think it would take it a while.
But I don't think
I hope so.
I don't think the falling itself is what
It
kills
deserves
it.
it?
And certainly not going through the
Does
gateway is
it?
what kills it.
It was made for a purpose, so does it really deserve?
I feel like I read that answer just recently.
Yeah, it is an evil.
I'll find it
thing.
before this ends.
It is a weapon. It's not. It's not like a person. It is a weapon.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't have a soul. Okay.
I'm gonna look it up, so I'm gonna look away from y'all right now. But yes, is there any other viewings? I mean, are we getting close to the end here? What time does this end?
We have 5 minutes.
We have 5 minutes. Okay, is there one here that you're seeing, Seth, that you want to tackle? If we don't see one in the audience
We've
here.
hit a lot of the ones I want to talk about. There's a bunch of sort of vague ones that we could talk about. Or symbolic also. What was exiled is cast down. What was cast down is raised up. Order burns to clear his path. I think there's a lot of things that are cast down and raised up, and you could debate as to exactly what those would be. Whether it was nobles, whether it was cities, whether it was Forsaken, that sort of thing.
All of the above.
All the above. So there's a whole set of prophecies here that are vague enough that they could refer to a lot of different things.
Just be poetic.
Or poetic. There's a lot of these are very symbolic, and I don't have any.
Kind of a quick topic change because we got there any of the Egwene's dreams that weren't
Oh,
really
yeah.
interpreted?
Yes.
Well, you look it up. This is a paraphrasing, which why when I'm very speculative and it works against my point, I don't agree with it. But it is a paraphrased answer, so you take it for what you will. This is Jonathan B. asking about or talking about the golem. Jonathan wrote about Brandon's answer. Brandon said that the golem can go through gateways from one place to another, but golem or shadow spawn of a more perfected kind, it would have been too easy to kill if you just needed to shove it through a gateway. However, falling through the skimming gateway for a few minutes did kill the golem, and it is really dead, and it's not going to show up again. So, but
we
that
don't
was
know where the other ones are.
yeah,
The other
but,
five.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that was at least a paraphrased version of that answer. If you were
A
curious.
theory that there were golems we saw different ones, but I've forgotten why they said that. No, I didn't think it was right.
Well, the only reason I ever thought there potentially could have been a second golem was the fact that we didn't hear who was it that had one? Was it Samael who found the one in the box, the stasis box, and potentially it was a golem who killed Barthanes in book 2, and maybe it was the same golem that then killed Herod Fell in the same estate, which then became the school. And so was that before about the first one? That was before we really heard about anybody having a golem and what they could do. So potentially that's where they thought there was a second one, or did you know of anything else?
I trying to remember. I think this was Jordan Connie probably more than a year ago. But I thought it was really interesting. They were convinced that there were actually 2 golems that had been found, and it wasn't necessarily the same one that killed Fell and was chasing after Matt. Okay. I thought it was fun to think about, but I didn't see any real evidence for it.
In terms of Egwene's dreams, there's not really very many unsolved ones, but there were some that are a little vague. There's one where Rand is in chains and it was he who was screaming, and that could either be when he gets kidnapped or when Semirog has the collar on him, and it's not really clear to me which one that is. Curious if anyone has any opinions about that. Formatting. That's also. Oh yeah, that's also possible when he gets captured in a prison. So there's again lots of possibilities there. A dream of Perrin with a beard leading a huge pack of wolves that stretched as far as the eye could see. I mean, again, Dumai's Wells, last battle. There's Perrin leading wolves isn't exactly a specific incident. So there's a couple of more like those where I could pull out a few options where they happen multiple times. But a lot of Egwene's dreams, honestly, are pretty well solved. They're some of the more complete prophecies.
I always wanted her to be able to interpret more of those herself and
Right.
not just be things that we as the reader be like, oh, well, that's what that is. I always was a little, frustrated for her on, she's like, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me. So
There's one here that I actually think is worth talking about, and this is a Sanderson one, Towers of Midnight. The vision changed. She saw an enormous sphere made of the finest crystal. It sparkled in the light of 23 enormous stars shining down on it where they sat on a dark hilltop. There were cracks in it, and it was being held together by ropes. There was Rand walking up the hillside, holding a woodsman's axe. He reached the top and hefted the axe, then swung at the ropes one at a time, chopping them free. The last one parted, and the sphere began to break apart, the beautiful globe falling in pieces. Rand shook his head. I don't know what the 23 stars are. I'm not sure what the globe is. I'm not sure what Rand is chopping at. That is as vague to me as they get with prophecies, and I have no idea what's going on with that one.
Yeah, I don't either. Well, I know we're right at the
I'm
end.
not remembering.
Yeah, I have to go back. This is a good one. I'd love to hear your theories about this one afterwards, if you have any. This was what a great one to end on. I had forgotten about that one. So, well, thank you so much to my panelists, Seth, Maria, and Zool. And thank you very much for being here. This is always a fun conversation, and we'll see you at the next panels, everybody. Thank you. Bye, everybody in the chat online. Thanks for being with us, Marcia, Trian, Reese. DK Moon.
Okay, I don't remember where my next panel
Bye-bye.
is. I think